Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you on Tuesday, June 27th, on behalf of Arcadia Economics. This is a quick video today about something that, if you're investing in the precious metals markets or just perhaps living on planet Earth in general, might find interesting to keep an eye on. I'll file this in the category of things that could be nothing or could be perhaps the break point that any of us who've been watching borrow, spend, print, on and just seemingly having lost faith in any rationality to our markets. I think it's all going to come to a head at some point. I've been saying that since, I guess, 2009 was when I feel like I started looking at what happened with the housing bubble and how some people did see that in advance, saw it pretty clearly in advance, and wrote and detailed what they saw before it happened. So it wasn't a complete surprise out of left field. And rather than continuing to listen to Banks and Ben Bernanke and Janet Yellen, and who were blindsided by it, we'll leave intent aside for for the moment, but I thought it made sense to see the thinking that led to how did someone see this in advance. And similar to how the mortgage bubble, if you understood what was happening, there was something that eventually had to be resolved, which we saw as the housing crisis. So similar to nothing was really fixed since then. It was just borrowed and printed over at a faster pace. And for years I've been wondering, when is the next big crash event going to happen? And I think a lot of it is, again, tied into the gold and silver markets, particularly silver, where there's seemingly some break point where you run out of metal, or if a big buyer comes in and says, wait a second, I see the manipulation that's going on. I hear that there's hundreds of paper claims for each ounce of physical metal. I'm looking at any of the data that I can find, which one thing I've been thinking about lately, I don't want it to feel as if I don't give specific data often on some of these things, although part of what I've seen from working on Wall Street and then just continuing to learn about it outside of it is that where's the data coming from? There's so much of what we thought that just turns out to be, it's still good to understand and watch and be aware of the information. Maybe you might disagree with it, but to the degree that other people are going to react in a certain way is certainly good from the trading standpoint. But with that said, China doesn't has a reputation for saying we have this much gold in there from everything, all the inflows that we can read in any of the. There's a lot of good researchers out there who keep digging in trying to find out how much gold they have. Nobody really knows these things for sure. So my point is, I'm not trying to be light on details and evidence, just also pointing out that perhaps our understanding or framework for what we consider fact or evidence maybe isn't always as certain as we might think. And it's just good to be aware of that. So anyway, I've been hearing for years that at some point, whether it's running out of metal or if all this debt, if there was a problem in the bond market or some sort of spark where the whole thing is based on printed money, and we have a couple thousand years of history that show that eventually that doesn't work. Now, normally people would buy gold and silver, and a lot of people did following the last round of printing, although they got torched because and it's what I did as well. So my thought process was, you see, well, my God, I don't think people get the magnitude, the extent of how much money was printed. I'll put a link below for the monetary base chart so you can see that if you thought we were printing money before 2008, it went exponential. So seemingly based on the fundamentals, it would seem like gold and silver should be a lot higher as well. And it's one of those things that's once you start, again, I don't want you to think anything just because I say it, but rather hopefully I'll introduce some new ideas or questions that maybe you might not have thought of just because we were trained not to think of them. And I find that it was one of those rabbit holes where you kept digging down and wondering, well, they just launched QE3, QE4, and remember it was maybe 2012, 2013, one of the last QE packages, and metals were down by the end of the day. Here it is, massive money printing, and there are just so many peculiarities that were unexplainable. And again, if you have any specific questions on some of those, leave your comments below, and we can dig into that further. But to get back to our original point and keep this one somewhat short today, in my opinion, we're headed towards some sort of break point, which I would see not as a matter of if, but when. Certainly, if you think of what are the signs that you might see, if you're working for Bernie Madoff or Enron, you probably could sense something wasn't quite right leading up to when things collapse. So again, that's what I've been training myself to think of. What are the signs that we would see? Would we hear of tightness in the delivery of physical metal? There's all these small signs that emerge, yet it just hasn't happened yet. But again, our point was Andrew Maguire, who a couple of years ago went to the CFTC and basically told them this is how the markets are manipulated, walked through what was going to happen before it happened, then saw the price play out exactly as he predicted. And, well, things get a little quirky from there because rather than attending, there was a meeting set up to supposedly get to the bottom of it. Then suddenly he was canceled as one of the witnesses, and basically a guy who seems to present a lot of credible information, in my opinion, about how the manipulation works and has been accurate a lot of things and has an inside window to the market that is quite unique, in my opinion. And he came out on King World News, did an interview back in February where he said that we are nearing the point where the amount of physical metal that people are taking and the amount that is there is getting closer and closer to some sort of break point where you see eventually people want the metal, it's not there, and in the process of covering those short positions, whether you see 50, 100, or greater prices in silver, that's what I've been sitting around for years waiting for. And I think it's still, that's the thing, is that nothing you see changes that. It just is a matter of when. And so Andrew came out a couple of weeks ago updating his earlier interviews saying, watch out in 26 days. And he didn't go into specifically, I guess he was saying wasn't able to speak freely about what it was that he was expecting, although he has said that he'll comment shortly before that, so I'll be keeping my eyes and ears open for that and pass along what we hear. But basically, from when he gave the interview and said 26 days, I believe backs out to July 8th. I'll check that as we get closer, but again, I try and separate out the people who always say gold and silver is undervalued, it's manipulated, it's going higher tomorrow, which I think all of those reasons for why it will go higher are very solid and intact, yet I think one of the things I like to think that I get right is realizing as much as I can see the fundamentals, I have no idea. I wish I could tell you specifically when. Then we'll shoot these videos from the beach when that happens. So it's always being very careful to hear information that's coming out, and also you get used to the different voices in the community. And there's certain people, like, for example, Andrew, when they make a comment like this, because, again, while I wish I could give you more detail, felt as if he was not, again, able to share at that time exactly what the event might be. But it certainly fit that category of if we are going to wake up one Sunday night and have an announcement similar to Nixon saying, hey, gold standard gone, buddy, and just you hear rumors of a gold price reset where, well, there are a few people who know. Again, no one's told me the exact plans, but if we woke up one day and they said, well, we're pegging gold to $3,000, or maybe there's some other event which basically you wake up and either the manipulation has been overrun or there's some sort of failure on the COMEX or some sort of delivery failure. Again, I think we're looking at a matter of when, not if. So we'll see when that happens. But anyway, I'm curious to see what Andrew's talking about because, again, a voice that I really respect. I'll also put the link to his interview underneath there, and you can check it out for yourself if you'd like to. And either case, hopefully this is helpful in terms of framing how to go about if you are invested or just trying to understand how this might impact the world. It's so different. I'm 38 now, so I guess a child of the 80s and 90s where we grew up in this mentality of thinking of we're getting 8 and 10% returns and then every couple of years it crashes. And so is there a way to avoid the sucker punch? And that's what I'm here to help with. So hope it was helpful today. Go out there, have a great day, leave some comments, subscribe, and we will keep you posted. Should be fun. Thanks.